Good afternoon. This is Tony Patino getting ready for my conference with Dr. Quinn, my mentor. This session may not seem as natural because this is our second take. Apparently we recorded, and once I was getting ready to save it and drop it in the Dropbox, apparently it did not save. Kind of a big part. So we're doing this second take. All right.
All right, so we've had our pre-conference, of course, and so just wanted to kind of focus on three main things today, and those things are leadership, student achievement, as well as collaboration as well. So, but at the beginning of the year, we talked about, well, you were able to do this self-assessment, you were able to identify your strengths and your weaknesses. So let's start out there, and let's talk about how you've been leveraging your strength to really capitalize on your areas of growth.
Well, and again, I'm sorry, you're going to hear this for a second time, and not you guys, but you do. But the leveraging part, as far as my strength is concerned, the one of the strengths that I've applied during this time, during this last month and a half, 2 months, has been the ability to just work through different scenarios. If something is needs to get done, I'm getting it done. Unfortunately, I've had more work than I probably needed to have, mostly because I've created some fires that I then had to put out myself, and thus the work was compounded. But nonetheless, with all that being said, I just feel like the work that I was doing was pretty strong because regardless of what happened, I understood that the work had to get done. We had to complete what we needed to complete for data purposes, for priority purposes, whatever the case might be, and we accomplished those kind of things. I just get uptight with myself. I mean, recently my wife asked me, how's your year going? And I told her, I feel like I'm getting things done, but I am not happy with the work that I'm doing because I've created scenarios or circumstances that have forced me to do more work than I really had to. And just that, so as you talk about leveraging, what I leveraged there was the ability to just wage work on whatever it is that's going on. Yeah.
And then in terms of reflecting upon, the experience that you had thus far in terms of the fires and probably creating additional work for yourself.
Right.
So how do you begin to go forward? How have you been going forward? Even with that mindset of knowing, hey, I know I got to really work to kind of, so that these fires do not keep, igniting.
Right. Well, for starters, again, the priority has been accomplishing the priority. Whatever needs to get done is going to get done, with also an eye for the next project, whether it's Principal Packet 2, whether it's inventory, whether it's testing, whatever the case is, I can't sit there and dwell on the errors that I had. Our county mentor was asking me one day when we were discussing. She says, "Well, is there a reset opportunity for you?" And I kind of looked at her and I said, "There's no reset. Next August,
past the reset.
Yeah, next August is a reset. It's just getting done what I need to get done in order to then move from that phase, this opening phase of expectations, and move into a new phase, which is whatever else is next needs to get done." But also, you ask about what am I doing in the meantime. I'm also considering, not really considering, but actively thinking about the fact that there's a lot of procedural concerns that I have for myself. That at this point, a lot of the mistakes that I've made and the fires that I've started have been contained because they're right here in the building, and it's I can rush around really fast and fix it. The example that I gave earlier is that. You're kidding me. Sorry about that. The phone was doing something funky. The example that I gave earlier was that that there was a weekend where I realized that we had used the wrong answer document, and I had to spend the next 36 hours bubbling in responses for the whole second grade, and that's setting me back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to find where in the procedure I'm making the mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
and where I believe I'm making the mistakes is I'm not checking back on my error or on the process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trusting the process without really reevaluating or um, just reobserving it, because as I hand over the responsibilities to other people,
Mm-hmm.
at some point I need to check. I need to
Right.
check back with things. The other day I thought the testing was ready to go. Everything looked great. I told the technology people we need headphones. We need headphones. We need headphones.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment of testing, there weren't
No
headphones.
headphones.
And as Miss Littman said to me afterwards, and you gave me the look, and we were all in in that moment. She said to me, Tony, you have to go back and check.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep thinking to myself, what is going to happen that day that I don't learn this valuable
Mm-hmm.
lesson,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever goes wrong affects the entire school,
Right.
in a bigger way that is not as contained as it is right now. So.
Right. And so it seems as though you've already solved how you're going to move forward with the monitoring piece and kind of, making sure that you're kind of having like those formative assessments along the way,
Right,
if
right.
you will, with the different projects that you're engaged in. So let's look at let's move into like the realm of like student achievement, more so with thinking in terms of how you were leading like your grade level. So how are you leading so that, each of your teachers can provide quality instruction for all students?
Well, the opportunity to work with kindergarten has been an opportunity to lead more actively, I think, than I get to do with second grade, and I'll get to that in a second. And with kindergarten, I've been pleased with being able to come in a scenario where our AP has been on leave, and I've had an opportunity to work with these teachers and give them feedback in areas that I think have been supportive. Specifically, the one that came up recently was that where in their lesson plan, in their lesson plans, for the gradual release, they were doing a nice job until they got to the you do part, and then at that point they just had centers, which really isn't enough information, and it gets back to that premise of that if you write a lesson plan, it's got to be specific enough that anybody could walk in and do the lesson plan. So giving them that kind of feedback, and then just being able to drop into classes and have informal conversations with them, and give them feedback about what they're doing in the class, that I think has been I think it's been helpful. Also in STEM,
Right.
supporting their STEM initiatives and making sure that, or PBL initiatives, and I think that's I think I've been able to again be able to support as well there. With second grade, it's I shared this earlier. I was handed the keys to a Lamborghini, and I just haven't wrecked it, so it's been good. And but I'd like to take some ownership, because I think that they understand my intentions, and every time I turn around, they're kind of beating me to the punch, which is nice, because then it relieves me of some things I have to do, and I'd like to take some credit to think that I'm doing something that puts them in a position where they feel like, oh, this is coming on next. We need to get going with this. But even so, the other day, one of our teachers had a wonderful presentation on the STEM project that's coming up, and after she got done, I congratulated her. I think she did a great job, but then offered two bits of advice moving forward. One of which is, where are the stopping points where you're assessing students?
Yeah.
And the second part is, how are we differentiating?
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of really good pieces there, but now and we're really doing a great job with PBL. But that's the next step.
Right.
Where are we? Are we being explicit about our stopping points, which then leads us to how do we differentiate, and being able to have that kind of conversation, I think, has helped me lead second grade, and certainly their results, I would say, in spite of me, are really amazing. They've done a great job for these first interim scores.
And so your role at collaborative planning, what is, I think you hinted at what it might look like. I know you probably give them like guidance and direction. Can just talk a little bit more about what is it that you think may be one of the main behaviors, instructional leadership behavior that you kind of employ so that they do get the results that they're getting?
Well, I don't want to call it hands off, but I will sort of call it hands off. They're working. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. What I try to do during the collaborative planning is I look at their lessons. I look at the lessons they're developing. I go to their standards and make sure that the standards are aligning, or the lessons are aligning with the standards. And then I will, if I see a disconnect somewhere, that's where I will chime in. If I see, a phrase or a thought, just like in the kindergarten one where they were writing out they weren't writing out their connection, their centers piece. They were just kind of saying centers. What are we doing in those centers? What are we doing there to support our students? And to be as specific as possible, because that is what is going to set us apart. I've been there where I kind of generalize something. I've done that, but the more specific I am, the more reflective it allows me to be, and the better work I'm going to do. And so when I think of my habit, I think of being able to be there for my teachers in a supportive way, because that's their job. I don't want to encroach so much into it where they feel like we're controlling the controls. Their teachers appreciate that autonomy,
Right.
and at the end of the day, they have some autonomy in developing their lessons, and they have autonomy as their delivery of their lesson. Where the autonomy kind of doesn't exist is that they're all doing the same thing. But I try to hands off, but not really hands off kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. So we talked about leadership, we talked about student achievement, and we talked about how our teachers collaborate, but I think it's very much important for us to talk about how we as an administrative team collaborate as well. So talk to us about how you are collaborating with your administrative team so that our organization is effective, efficient, and successful too.
Well, we have our weekly meetings, and there is collaboration there, albeit I think contrived, because we have to be there, and we are going to discuss certain things, and there you have it. But we do have a good back and forth about the things that we share, observations. We all have different strengths, and it allows us to look more deeply into whatever it is that is coming up, to make sure that we don't have something that doesn't work. Whether it's from a scheduling standpoint or an appropriateness standpoint, whatever the case may be. Starting last year, we started the rounds, where we visit the different classrooms as a group, and we identify we observe what we see and what we don't see, and then the conversation afterwards is truly a growing experience for me, because I'm still learning the elementary school world, and particularly learning what rigor looks like in the elementary school, and with those meetings and those conversations, I think they're very valuable. I hope that I think that I offer something. I'd have the elementary school experience, but I have a lot of teaching experience, and have my own observations about things that I see in the classroom, and I think it makes sense and it fits our conversation. I don't feel like an outlier, that I'm saying something that's completely wacky to what everybody else is saying. But one of the best conversations we have are the informal ones, the ones we have in the hallway, the ones we kind of impromptu, we kind of drop into one of each other's offices and have a conversation about, whether it's, again, testing, whether it's appropriateness of a lesson, or a teacher, or procedure, or whatever, and we're able to have these conversations, and then one of the other APs offers a question, or I offer a question. There's we ask each other these questions, and I think we get to a really good place. So I think we count all out on each other, and I think we depend on each other, and we trust each other. Yeah.
So lastly, let's think in terms of the support that you might need, or that you would need to kind of further shift your trajectory, so that you could be successful, and the folks that you're leading, that they could be successful as well.
Well, one of the things that I keep looking back to where most of my errors are and the areas of growth are, and the true area of growth for me is eliminating those moments where I'm creating more work for myself and building fires that don't need to exist, that then I have to put out. And what I really need to do, and I mean, some of them are already built into, when I do Title I, we do have checklists, but there are some other procedures for testing and that kind of thing. For the Title I workshops, when working with Judy, I need to make sure that I have a checklist that I am going through, that I can then bounce off of you guys, or I can rotate you guys and drop into any one of your offices and say, okay, this is what we're doing. I just want to make sure that all my I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Here's my checklist. Do you see anything here that I'm missing? And just getting that feedback, it could be 5 minutes, but those 5 minutes could be invaluable to the success of whatever it is that we're doing. So I need to be better about that and be explicit about it. I think I need to flat out do it and put it together. And based on our first meeting earlier today, you're expecting that from me.
So. That's right, because it's very important that we have an accountability partner too. And we can't remember all of these things. If we're planning big projects, we're prone to forget something. So I think, having a checklist and having somebody to hold you accountable as you go throughout the task will definitely yield you some great benefits. I just think going forward, we'll just attend to these things so that the fires are not burning profusely. And then we'll come back again probably with January, February time frame. We'll have our final one, and then we'll see how closely you've been able to stay true to yourself and further move student achievement forward so that we can be like an effective organization.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you very much. I hope this was what you wanted. I'll be dropping in Dropbox in the next 24 hours.
I hope that it recorded.